Hello everyone, welcome back to Bytewise Academy. In our previous lesson, we learned what a computer is. We understood that a computer is an electronic device that accepts data, processes it according to instructions, stores information if needed, and finally gives us meaningful results. We also learned that computers are fast, accurate, can store huge amounts of data, and help us perform many tasks in our daily lives. But have you ever wondered how we actually communicate with a computer? That's exactly what we will learn in today's lesson: input and output devices. How do we actually communicate with a computer? Today, we are going to learn one of the most important topics in computer basics, that is nothing but input and output devices. Whenever we use a computer, we need some way to tell it what to do. After compiling our work, the computer also needs a way to show us the results. The devices that help us communicate with the computer are called input devices and output devices. Again, I'm repeating, the devices that help us communicate with the computer are called input devices and output devices. By the end of this lesson, you will know what these devices are, why they are important, and you will be able to identify many examples from our daily lives. Okay, let's dive into it right now. First, let us see what are input and output devices. Let's first understand the difference between these two terms. An input device is any hardware device that allows us to enter data or instructions into the computer. An input device is any hardware device that allows us to enter data or instructions into computer. That means the way in which we give information to the computer, okay? Think of it like talking to the computer. Whenever we type, click, touch, or speak to a computer, we are giving it input, right? Whenever we are talking to the computer, whenever we are typing, clicking, touching, or speak to a computer, we are giving it input, okay? An output device, on the other hand, is any hardware device that displays or presents the processed information from the computer, right? So we have already given information to the computer through clicking or typing, which is nothing but input. And in return to that, an output device is the one which gives out the processed information, which displays the information to us. That means computer is talking back to us through output devices. Understood? This is how the computer talks back to us. You already know that this is a very simple process, right? You already know that we give input to the computer and the computer processes the information and it gives out the output. For example, when you type your name using a keyboard, the keyboard is the input device, the computer processes your typing, and your name appears on the monitor, which is the output device. This process happens every time you use a computer. You know that, right? So when you type your name in a keyboard, the typing process is nothing but giving the input to the computer, and that is displayed on the monitor, the screen, right? So that is nothing but the output. So monitor is the output device and keyboard is the input device. So this process happens every time you use a computer. Now let us dive into different kinds of input devices, okay? Now let us understand input devices in detail. An input device is a hardware component used to send data or instructions to the computer. Without input devices, the computer wouldn't know what we want it to do. Some common input devices are keyboard, mouse, scanner, microphone, webcam, joystick, and so on. Okay, So without input devices, as I said earlier, without input devices, the computer wouldn't know what we want it to do. Without me telling you to do something, how can you know what to do? Isn't it? Exactly the same way, without us telling the computer what to do, the computer would not know what it has to do. So that is the reason why we need the input devices, right? So what are the examples of the input devices? Keyboard, mouse, scanner, microphone, webcam, joystick, etc. Let us see what are the uses of each of these input devices in detail. Keyboard is used to type letters, numbers and symbols. Okay. Mouse is used to point, click, drag and open files, which you will learn in the coming sessions. Okay. And what about the scanner? Scanner converts paper documents into digital form. Microphone records sounds and voice. Webcam captures photos and videos. And at the same time, joystick mostly used for playing games. So while computer games are played, you often identify a device in the player's hands. So that particular hardware device is called as a joystick. Every time you interact with your computer, you are probably using one or more input devices. Without input devices, we cannot communicate with the computer. Next, let us see some common input devices. Let's look at these devices one by one, okay? The keyboard is probably the most common input device. We use it for typing assignments, emails, passwords, and messages. Whatever the text input that we have to give to the computer, we usually use the keyboard. The mouse helps us move the cursor around the screen, click buttons, select files, and drag pictures. A scanner copies printed documents or photos into the computer. A scanner, in the sense, the physical documents or the physical copies that we have in our hands, those things we digitalize them. We try to convert them into digital form. So the device which is used to convert the physical document into a digital form is called as a scanner. Okay. And then this mouse. You can see a device just beside your computer, the one which we move all the time to give any input, or just an arrow mark that displays or that moves on the screen the entire time until which we use the computer, right? So, and then let us see what is a webcam. A webcam captures images and videos. It's commonly used during online classes and video calls. So while we talk to someone, or while we interact with someone, or while attending a meeting, or while taking photos and all those things, the webcam is used. That webcam is capturing our images, right? So this is also a way in which we give the input to the computer. A joystick is mainly used in gaming because it provides better control while playing. Okay, so each of these devices sends information to the computer, so they are all called the input devices, right? So now let us see what are the output devices. Okay, what is an output device and what are all the output devices? Next, let's move to the output devices. An output device is a hardware that displays or presents the processed information from the computer to the user. After the computer finishes processing the data, it sends the results through an output device, right? As we already said. Some common output devices include the monitor, which displays text, pictures, videos, and everything we use on the screen. The printer, which prints digital documents onto paper. Speaker, which produces sound such as music or videos. Headphones, which let one person listen privately. And a projector, which displays the computer screen or a large wall or screen often used in classrooms and meetings, right? So the monitor that displays the text that we have typed using a keyboard. It also shows us the pictures on the screen. On a computer screen, we can see text, pictures, videos, and everything, right? So that is called as a monitor, and through which the computer is communicating back to us. So that is why that is called as an output device. And then the printer, which prints digital documents onto paper. We have already seen what is a scanner. Scanner takes a physical document and makes it its digital copy. So that is scanner, which is an input device. And then a copy which is already in digital format, that one we are getting a print or a physical copy onto our hands through a printer, right? So this is called as an output device. And a speaker, which produces sound such as music or videos. Headphones, which lets one person listen privately, right? We all use it while listening to music and all those. A projector. You might have already seen projectors in classrooms or in some meetings and that kind of thing. So these are all called as the output devices. So what are the common output devices that most of the times we see? Let's understand these devices a little better. The monitor is the main output device because it shows everything happening inside the computer. The printer creates a physical copy of documents, assignments, or photographs. Speakers produce sounds, music, movies, and notification alerts. Headphones work similarly to speakers but allow personal listening without disturbing others. A projector enlarges the computer's display so that many people can see it together. These devices help the computer communicate its results to us, right? So that is the importance of the output devices. And then now let us see the comparison between the input devices and output devices, okay? Input devices send information to the computer, right? Input devices sends information to the computer. Output devices receive information from the computer, okay? So we are giving the information to the computer through input devices, and we are getting information from the computer through the output devices. Input devices are used before processing because they provide data. Before processing, input devices are used before processing. Processing is done within the computer, which we will see in the later classes, okay? So before processing, input devices are used because they provide data. Output devices are used after processing because they display the result. Output devices are used after the processing, right? So once the computer processes the data, and then it gives out the output. So now let us see keyboard, input device, monitor, output device, because we are giving the input in the form of text or image or whatever it is. We are giving the information to the computer through the keyboard, and that information is displayed back on the monitor. Same as the microphone. Using microphone, you talk to the computer, you give your input, and the processed information comes out from the speaker, okay? If someone speaks on the other end, that information you can listen to through a speaker. Same with the scanner and printer. We have already discussed it. Like scanner copies, makes a digital copy from the physical, and on the other hand, printer makes a physical copy out of a digital copy. A simple trick to remember is input goes into the computer, output comes out of the computer. Using these two keywords, key terms, in and out, you can easily identify what are the input devices and what are the output devices, right? So now let us see and understand this with a real life simple example, okay? So imagine you are ordering food online, okay? First, you type your order using your keyboard or tap your phone screen, right? Touch is also one of the ways in which we give information to the digital system or a digital device, whether it could be a computer or a mobile phone or a tab or whatever it is. So by giving or by texting, by touching or by texting, you are giving input to the screen. This is the input. The computer processes your request by checking the restaurant and your order details. Finally, it displays the order confirmation on your screen. This confirmation is the output. Okay? In between the showing up of the confirmation and the order that you have placed, in between there is a process which is done inside the computer. Okay, and that processing part we will see later. This confirmation is the output. So the process is input, processing, and then output. The same cycle happens whenever you search on Google, watch YouTube, play games, or type a document. This is the same process, always input, processing, and then output. So now let's quickly revise what we have learned today. An input device sends data to the computer. An output device displays the processed information. The computer always follows this cycle, right? Some common input devices are keyboard, mouse, scanner, microphone, webcam, and joystick. Some common output devices are monitor, printer, speaker, headphones, and projector. So the common process is input, processing, and output that you have to remember forever. So understanding these devices helps us understand how humans communicate with the computer. Before we dive deep into the computers and other things and other advanced topics, first we should learn how do we communicate with the computer systems. So that's it for today. Excellent job. In today's lesson, we learned about input devices, output devices, and how they help us communicate with a computer. In our next lesson, we'll learn about storage devices and understand how computers save our data permanently. If you found this lesson helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Bytewise Academy. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next lesson. Happy learning. Thank you so much.